All right, welcome back to the Battery Podcast with your hosts, Joe Beimel and Brent Dean. Brent is coming to you from lovely, I'm guessing it's hot as hell, El Paso right now, nice and dry and hot. I'm coming from my
Yeah,
little office in here, and there's no AC, so it's hot here as well, but probably a little more humid in this office than I think I got a fan. I just haven't turned it on, but. Yeah, we're just going to chat
yeah,
today about some of the athletes that we've had in the past. Um, we've trained so many guys over the years, and we've had everywhere from big leaguers, big league all stars, to guys in the minor leagues trying to make it to the big leagues, guys in indie ball, college guys, D1, D2, D3, NAIA, JUCO. Just a wide variety. We've had high school guys who are great players and projected, to be drafted or be D1 players or have committed to D1s. But we've also had those guys they get cut from their high school team, they get cut from their JV team, or, um, their junior college team. So it's just a wide variety of guys that we've trained over the years. And there's really some great stories in there. Um, and I've said this a million times, and I've said it on here, but when we first started, I just thought I wanted to work with people who were good. It's really easy to tell somebody who's been in the big leagues and has good body awareness, that they need to do something different mechanically, and then you watch and they do it. It's not so easy when you're working with maybe a 14-year-old who's not genetically gifted or not super athletic. You've got to kind of teach them that athleticism, um, so they can perform the way you want them to, but then, obviously perform the way they want to. And we've done it in LA, we've done it in El Paso, Texas. And we are kind of talking about this a little bit before, but before we get into kind of the stories of certain athletes in both places, what, in your opinion, would you say is the biggest difference between kind of the athletes we see in the Los Angeles area and the athletes that we see like in the El Paso area?
yeah. That's a great question. I'd say one of the biggest things is perspective. The talent
Yeah.
pool is semi similar. I mean, you could just take a handful of kids from El Paso, a handful of kids from LA at 15 to 20 years old, and you're going to find some athletes that are already innately pretty talented. Some that have the work ethic, some that have the skill set or the drive, but the perspective on what it's really going to take to get to the next level, the opportunities that are abundant for some of these athletes. They see it all the time in LA, whereas in Texas, sometimes here in El Paso and West Texas, they maybe think that it's just a small town, so people don't see them. Or, there's very limited opportunities to play baseball beyond the local junior college. And there's only one junior college here within 400 miles, maybe a little bit less. And there's, I don't know, within a 15-minute radius, about 30 D1, D2 JUCO schools in that Los Angeles area. So the
Yeah.
abundance there of opportunity is much more obvious. Um, so I'd say that's probably one of the first things that we've had to address here in El Paso is introducing some of the perspective that the opportunities can be there for these athletes if they do control their timeline, they do control their effort level and the skill set they're trying to build up, so they don't get caught in the trap of just following the same routine of whatever's been set up there. And I know that's always been an issue for um, the athletes here in El Paso is they want to be seen, so they have to go out, go to Albuquerque, go to Phoenix, go to Dallas or Houston. But we're living in an age now where they can just throw a video up on Twitter or on X, get seen. They're training, they're building. That timeline can be controlled a little bit more. But I mean, you think about athletes from here. You got Ivan Melendez, who's a Golden Spikes Award winner 2022. You got Daryl Hernandez, who's in the big leagues currently with the Oakland A's, or I guess the Las Vegas A's, and Brandon Pimentel, picked up out of UTRGV, Rio Grande Valley. Um, There's a couple other kids that have, gone to colleges that maybe should have gone to a bigger school, but they're playing and they still have the opportunity to play in like a pioneer league or an independent team. Chris Castaneda, I know we've had 4 or 5 of our guys like Mitch Stone and Drew Marufo, um, Rene Mendoza get picked up when they had very little college success. So the big thing for us is just really helping to mentor some of these athletes here that maybe didn't have that understanding of the perspective. But before we go further into that, it made me think like you're in a humid office. I'm sitting outside. I don't know why I decided to sit outside. Just dry desert. It's 100 degrees. This might be a mental fortitude episode where I'm gonna see how long I can go before I start sweating and have to get off of here. And maybe you go jump in your cold tub or something. And we can see what our conversation looks like from there.
Yeah, I'm looking back behind me. Well, I have a mirror like right here, and I'm looking over, and the remote for the fan is right there. I'm like, I should go grab that and turn it on because my I'm already sweating bullets. My hands are like all sweaty. Just like I don't know how long I can last in here.
Yeah,
Um, but
I
yeah, I
think we should
mean,
do
I
that. We
think
should do
that's a
that
great.
next episode.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great answer. I do. The perspective between both places is completely different. You know, when we're in LA, I see a lot of kids there, a lot of athletes where they're good, you know, and you look and you talk to them and they just completely believe that they're going to play at a D1 somewhere. And when you do this, you ask the same person, maybe a little better in El Paso, they're like, oh, maybe I'll go to like EPCC or New Mexico Junior College, or, you know, they just don't. I don't know if they just don't believe they can make it to a different place, or if they just, I know a lot of times in El Paso, we've talked about this multiple times. It's a very large city, one of the top cities in the entire country in population. Um, but they feel like they're a small town. And I think with that, a lot of times people just don't want to leave. They're either afraid to leave, or, you know, family is huge there, so they don't want to leave their family, or maybe they have to help their family out financially. Sometimes we've had those kind of kids, you know, in that area where they can't go to school anywhere because they have to financially help out and get a job. And so going to Texas or going to, you know, school in California is just not even reality for them. And that's actually kind of sad, but that's just reality. That's what it is. Um, but with that being said, I just feel the athletes in California just expect that they are going to do it and they're going to make it. And I think sometimes in that area, we look and we see somebody's like, well, yeah, maybe, you know, I don't know. They're not fully bought in, they're not fully committed. And then we see that with how they train, when they show up, what they're willing to sacrifice. And it usually ends up just being so much, you know, you just see so many more guys from our place in LA are going on to different schools kind of all over the country. And I think if you want to be successful in playing baseball and reach your goals, you have to be willing to go anywhere, do anything. You know, even I look at the influx of guys now that we have from my area back here that want to go out to LA to, one, so they can train at our facility, but then, you know, be around you, be around the staff out there, play at Harbor, have those connections that they know if they put up numbers and they, you know, they put on some weight or they increase their skills, they're going to have an opportunity to play at the next level. It's just a matter of where, you know, it's not if they will, they know
Yeah.
they will. And it was super beneficial for, you know, a couple guys that went out there from this area this year. And I think it opened a lot of other people's eyes back here, because they're like, oh man, I don't have to go to this D3 that everyone else goes to back here. You know, I can go out there and have, you know, multiple opportunities. So and it's a small town back here, right? It's not El Paso. El Paso is gigantic. Here, I've said this before, but in my hometown, Kersey, it's got about 850 people. St. Mary's, which is the next town over, that's where the high school is. So St. Mary's area. So people from Kersey go to St. Mary's area, and a couple other smaller towns. But St. Mary's itself, I mean, there might be 12,000 people there. So still super small. Maybe there's 15. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's not very many. But they know that if they want to reach their goals, they're going to have to go somewhere else to do that. And sometimes you can stick around, maybe go to a junior college in Maryland, or that's where I went, and go from there. But I think they're just seeing that opportunity of going out there and being in that culture, being able to train at our facility every single day. Um, it's just too, it's just too good of a thing for them to pass up. So I think that's just kind of the mind shift and that needs to happen in that area. Um, I don't know if it will. We're working on it. We're working on it there to get
Yeah.
a little more positivity in that area and get guys some looks. And we did have Aaron Alba from that area go to Harbor this year, which I think was huge for him because he just wasn't getting an opportunity anywhere else. And I think he puts a good year in next year and gets his velocity up, his strength up. He'll have quite a few opportunities as well.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think the work ethic in El Paso is tremendous. Like the kids that come in here, they're wanting to do the work. Um, they get better. They're willing to do as much as it takes to get the opportunities that are obvious to them. The tough part is it's not always obvious, where you can live at home in LA and go to 4 to 5 different junior colleges and just drive there,
Mm-hmm.
possibly more. So there's options that are on the table. Here in El Paso, there's one junior college and zero D1 opportunities. So if they don't make it, they have to either get a scholarship, they have to leave, and maybe at 17, 18, or 19 years old, maybe they're not ready. Maybe they're not aware of how that is going to look as far as a challenge for their timeline, for the adaptations they need to develop, um, to make that a viable option for them to go to the next level. So yeah, I think that one of the things that we've been trying to mentor some of these parents and these families through is that they don't have to just fall in line with what they know here. There's opportunities that are all over the place. It's just about what they're willing to really sacrifice, knowing if they don't get out of school until 4, but they have practice and they practice till 7, they might have to work out from 7:45 until 9, 3 days a week, or come in early at 6 a.m. and do that to start closing the gap on the training side to be able to keep up with some
Mm-hmm.
of the bigger schools in like in Dallas, or some of these teams they face in regionals when they get to playoffs. Because when you look at the talent, you go to like America's high school, there's some great players there. We've worked with some kids personally. The coaching is fantastic. So to me, it's very obvious like you can make it to the next level, but as a whole, you got to be able to fit where a kid maybe isn't the starting shortstop, but he wants to keep playing and he needs to go to a smaller JC, but it's a big sacrifice for him to have to move to Colorado, be on scholarship, be away from mom and dad, be away from his typical development network. And that's where the guys in Southern California are so blessed with that, is have the security to keep that continued for maybe another 6 months to 16 months or 24 months of development and having their close network involved. Um, but yeah, like I said, the work ethic here is fantastic. The kids are great. Now it's just about making sure that we can eloquently teach some of the opportunities that are available, or I guess inform some families about the opportunities that are available without them having to learn the hard way on all these options. It's great. Like when we first came here, there was very few, I guess, advanced training systems, incorporating technology with available high level skilled trainers. And now there's some pretty good options here in El Paso, which is fantastic for the kids that are developing. Um, we have probably a dozen or so in the Southern California area that all feed off of each other. And the growth factor in that area for talent just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So that's what obviously we're hoping to do here in El Paso, or anywhere else. We've looked at places like Phoenix, San Fernando Valley in California, Orange County, all over the country. There's so many pockets of these athletes that are really wanting to grow and really wanting to develop. Um, so that's where it's exciting for these families that buy into it, and it's just it's an eloquent message that has to be shared with them.
Yeah, with that being said, I wonder how the baseball players in Vail, Colorado are. That
Yeah,
might be a nice place to put
Boise.
something at 10. They're at like
Yeah,
10,000 feet. But still, like, I've driven through there a couple times over like the last year, and it's one of my favorite towns that I've ever been in. I love
yeah,
it. It's just beautiful, whether there's snow or not snow. Town itself is awesome. The houses, I mean, they're. I think I told you this, but when I went through there the last time, I stayed in a hotel in Vale, and I was like, man, I wonder what the prices on like houses are. And went on
yeah.
Zillow, and the first one that showed up was like 27 million or something. I'm like, oh, geez. So there's definitely money in Vale, but I don't know if anyone plays baseball. I think I saw a couple baseball fields, maybe a town or so away, but that might be
Yeah,
worth to looking into. Say, hey, we can come help out all your baseball players. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, so I'm kind of shifting focus, not completely, but we started to look at like specific athletes. Um, whether you can want to call them out by name or whatever. Um, just thinking of guys over the years that we've had in there. And I mean, there's so many success stories where, like you said, some of the guys we had in El Paso that didn't really play a lot in college, like Marufo, Mitch Stone, um, JJ Figueroa, Renee, like those guys got
yeah.
pro opportunities simply because they worked hard. They worked in the gym. They were putting up good
Right.
numbers in the gym. We got, and by we, I mean you, contacted like some indie ball teams and, uh, got them, with Drew, he got a tryout or he went to like the Pioneer League tryout. He was the first player overall drafted and then had a couple
Yeah, first
years.
overall
Um,
pick.
yeah, in that league or whatever out of that tryout. But all those guys got real pro opportunities and played for a couple years. I think JJ's not playing anymore. I don't know what Mitch is doing. Who knows what Mitch is doing? No one ever knows what Mitch is doing. But Drew still, he's working for us there, but he's working his way to get an opportunity this year as well. And those guys just I don't think anybody in El Paso had ever seen that before because they didn't have anything like us. So we came in there, we're able to get them opportunities to play professionally. And I think that started to kind of open some eyes where everyone's like, oh man, we can do this too. And then even who's the one guy just got called up to the big leagues from that area? Sammy.
Sammy.
Is it
Yeah, he's
Sam?
actually from Juarez, Mexico. Sammy de Terra. Yeah, he went to
Yeah.
New Mexico, NMSU, and yeah, he's been back and forth in our facility for the past few years, and really close with Drew Marufo, and
Yeah.
just got called up by the Angels. And he's from Juarez, Mexico, so he was coming over, driving over, and staying with us whenever he could, and then yeah, now he's a legitimate big leaguer. I mean, the kid's a hard worker, legitimate stuff. Love to see. He played for Team Mexico in the World Baseball Classic as well, so that was really awesome to see.
Yeah, for sure. And I go back, like I think of somebody like TJ Sebenik, um, which he's kind of fresh in my mind because I've been writing a recommendation letter for him for medical school. Um, and I have it written. I'm trying to submit it on this website he gave me, and it won't freaking work. So I don't know what's going on. I put it in a PDF, everything, can't get it to work. So I got to figure that out. But he was a kid who came in. He was cut every year from like his high school team, and just athletically was so far behind. And I don't mean that to like rip on him or anything, but even just socially, he was not. He was a little bit behind. He didn't talk a lot. It was kind of awkward when you talk to him. And to watch like that kid over the years turn into what he is now was pretty awesome. Not just on the baseball field. Um, he got way better, obviously, but he was a guy who he would come in and throw a bullpen, and there was never a bullpen where he did not throw a pitch and was on the ground for some reason. He just was not very athletic, and his feet would get tied up when he throw a pitch, and he'd fall on the ground, and you're just kind of looking like, why did you fall down right there? Just couldn't keep his balance on certain things. And then by the end, I think eventually I don't think he ever hit 90. That was kind of his goal. But he started out with us throwing like low 60s, I think, maybe mid 60s. And he did eventually get to like 88 miles an hour. Um, but trained with us for a long time. Just one of those guys that just kept coming in and putting in the work. And it didn't look pretty sometimes, but he was just doing it. He was committed and he wanted to get better, and he did. And it was pretty awesome to see. But then just how he changed like socially, and just watching his confidence grow as he trained, because he's doing it. He's doing something that was important to him. He was getting stronger. He was getting more athletic. He was getting more mobile. He started to do things where you're like, oh, that looks really good. You look like an athlete now. Where before you're just kind of like, okay, you need to keep working on this because it needs to get better. Um, but now he's like going into medical school. He's put in, it obviously was always super smart, but, has a bunch of friends, you know, just has confidence when you talk to him. He's not like looking at you out of the side of his eye, and he like looks you in the eye and speaks to you, and he's confident. And he would get to the point where he's ripping on people in the gym. They're ripping on him back, and it was such a fun thing to watch over the years. And it wasn't something that just happened like that. It just took time. It just took that work, putting it in, getting that confidence. And every story doesn't have to end in like, hey, this guy got a scholarship, this guy went to the big leagues, because a lot of times I feel like that is way more important. What happened for him, because it just made a transformation in his life. And who knows if he would be able to go to go to medical school without having that confidence, because obviously as a doctor, you have to be very confident. You have to look people in the eye, sometimes give them some bad news. Um, and if you don't have those social skills, it makes it very difficult. I mean, no, as you know, nobody wants to deal with a doctor who has like no bedside manner and just comes in and goes, "Hey, you're going to die tomorrow." you know? So I think
Nice.
that really helped him um, gain that confidence, like I said, and just um, that's always a fun one for me, because when you start realizing what we do, we obviously are trying to get people better at baseball, and I think when you see a side product like that in an athlete, it's just something to be proud of.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I don't think the ancillary products of like the development are necessarily a side product. It's kind of like, it's all part of the development of a person in general. Like you want them to be better with communication, better with teamwork, building confidence. Those are things that are kind of nuanced to the development side, where the consistency of their hard work will develop a lot of those things, but it's just not the low hanging fruit that is obvious. Like their strength, they need to gain weight, they need to get bigger, they need to throw harder. That's everyone. Even when we get a pretty established high level pro athlete throwing 95, they still want to get bigger and throw harder and throw strong or be stronger, develop better. effectiveness of their pitches or their efficiency. Um, but I would say a lot of the little characteristics that develop from an athlete working through a product like ours or a program like ours are super helpful to transition into life in general. Um, yeah, it's probably one of the cooler parts that I've experienced is just mentoring through those types of situations and not just the getting connected to a college or getting connected to a pro team. Because if it was something you would only do if you were guaranteed that you're going to play in the big leagues, you might only have 5 or 6 people in the entire city that really have an obvious shot. Everyone's working
Yeah.
for the best opportunity because there might be something that where it changes their entire life trajectory and they go to a college, it's a better university than they thought they would have gone to, or they've just developed overall as a person and it helps them with whatever they end up doing. So that's why athletes and baseball players specifically typically can translate into a lot of different fields and be prepared to compete in it. Whether it's business or technology, or it's still in baseball, but maybe they're a front office guy in analytics or coaching. There's so many different ways they can go. But yeah, I love how we initially were very well prepared to deal with high level athletes, working with pros and college guys. Um, and we still do that, obviously. But the local high school guys that are just trying to navigate this system, they seem to have development that transcends just baseball skills. It's everything. It's overall just life skills.
Yeah. And I even think like we've had so many guys in there. Uh, I'm sure you remember the one dude, Theron, was there in K, I think. And you go to
Yeah.
CSUN. He came in there and
See, son. Yeah,
yeah, he was throwing hard. I don't know if he got up to 95, but he was pretty freaking close.
he did. Yeah, he got
And
to
then
95. I think he's a Red Star
yeah,
guy.
yeah. And then uh baseball didn't really work out for him, going to play professionally or whatever, but now he's like a super awesome composer. you know, he
Hmm.
does like the music
Yeah.
for different TV shows and different movies and shit like that. So I mean, and not to say that he's doing that because of us by any means, but you just see the crossover with baseball. I just feel like if you played baseball at a high level or you have worked your ass off to try and get to a high level, and either you make it or you don't make it, I don't think that really matters, because you can do pretty much any single thing that you want to if you're able to
Right.
just endure that kind of failure all the time, with baseball.
Yeah.
And just even on the training side, we see it all the time. I've gone through it where you just have something in your head, what you think you getting better looks like, and it might not even be close to that. So you're working your ass off. You're busting your ass every single day. You're doing every little small thing. And you're like, I'm going to throw 95 tomorrow. And then you get on the mound and you throw 90 or you throw 80, and you're just like, oh my God, like what is going on? I thought today would be the day and it's just not. And so you have to really deal with that all the time. It's just not. And then if you do hit 95, all right, sweet, you hit it. But now you've got to stay there. And sometimes that's even harder because now it's like, all right, I got to stay there. You keep going and maybe you drop a little bit. Maybe your body just freaking is overloaded. And you hit that number for the first time and you just, your central nervous system just freaks out and goes, oh, I've never done that before. So now you don't hit it again for maybe a month, or something like that. And you're like, what is happening? So it is, I always say it's like psychological warfare because it's so hard to, you put in all this work for just those small moments. And we see that with business all the time too, as you put in all this work and then most of it sucks and most of it's shitty. And then you have those small glimpses of like, oh yeah, all right, this is why we're doing this. And it makes it all worth it just for that little bit. And then the next day sucks again. And you're just like, God dang it. But, and that's why I say, like, that's why if you can go through that either on the training side or on the baseball side of things, you're going to be set up to do pretty much anything you want, because I don't think there's anything else in life that is as hard. Um, and obviously you can go through tragedies and losing somebody or whatever. Like that's obviously awful. But, when it comes to work or relationships or whatever, I mean, if you failed in those things as much as you do in baseball or training, uh, you're you're probably not working for very long. So, um, it's just a reminder that what we're doing, matters and is really helpful. And even thinking of somebody like Justin Lewis, who he was playing in pro ball, drafted by the Dodgers, came to us. He got released from the Dodgers, lefty, didn't throw hard enough. And he's one that to this day kind of really, um, I wouldn't say bothers me, but I feel bad because he worked so hard. He got up to like 96, got an opportunity, got signed by the Rangers, and then went to spring training and it was COVID. You know, put in all
Yeah,
that
shut
work,
down.
got to where he wanted, and
Yeah,
then they released everybody.
yeah,
So they release him, and then it just things were different after that. He still was throwing well, but then just the opportunities weren't coming, and he went to indie ball and he did all right, but he was just a guy. He was an Ivy League guy, and he's a smart dude. So he decided to shut it down, which I know that wasn't easy for him. And uh, me to this day, I'm like, man, I just felt like he had something that he could have given to the game, and just you know could have reached where he wanted to go. It's just unfortunate circumstances. But then he reached out to me, like last year, maybe a year and a half ago, asking if I would write him some recommendation letters for business school. So he applied to all the greatest business schools in the country and ended up going to Chicago, um, and freaking loves it. And he just, it's another story where, yeah, baseball didn't work out for him. But because he went through all that and because he trained with us, I was able to write a letter telling that story. And, hopefully that was a reason he got accepted, and he got accepted to a bunch of different business schools. So Chicago was the one he chose, and I'm a little jealous because I love Chicago. So I see like his Instagram and stuff, and he's always doing like Chicago things. And I'm like, man, I love
yeah.
Chicago, and I let him know that all the time. It's such a great city. But um, like off the top of your head, who what story sticks out the most of some of the athletes that have trained with us? And obviously, it doesn't have to be. Um, I mean, having like a big league guy come in there, like we've got Kenley Jansen comes in all the time in the off season. That's pretty freaking cool because he's, what is he, third in saves all time now? Uh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
yeah. He's
I mean, that's freaking
potential Hall of
crazy,
Famer,
right?
right?
So these kids
Yeah,
get to watch Kenley Jansen come in and just see how he goes about things,
right.
and he's a good dude too. So anyone goes up to him and talks to him, he's a nice guy. He'll talk to you. He's not going to be like, "Oh, get away from me! I'm trying to work." Um,
Yeah,
so just, I mean, those
yeah,
kind of stories are just awesome. But like I said, is there anything that stands out in particular for you?
yeah. Yeah, well, I guess one of the more recent ones is Lucas Boson. He's probably one of the first
No.
athletes that I trained when I was still playing, and I picked up like an 8U team or something like that with it was like the South Bay Surf. So I'd come home in the off seasons, playing in
Mm-hmm.
the minor leagues, pick up some lessons, do some camps, the kind of the typical stereotypical thing um, a lot of minor league baseball players would do. So I was coaching him along with a handful of other guys, like who was on that team, Jamie Robertson, um, Justin Clapp, like some of these kids in the local South Bay teams that ended up going on and continuing to play for a while. But Lucas, he was a good athlete. His older brother played baseball as well. I think he played football at the University of Utah for a little bit. He had some cousins had ended up being pretty good athletes. And it was one of those situations where he he made varsity pretty early. What was it, his sophomore year? And then I think that was COVID that shut down.
Yeah.
Um, he's throwing 84 or 85 as a sophomore, which is pretty good. Started getting overused a little bit. And so he wasn't like,
Yep.
behind the curve by any means. Um, but ended up shutting down, moved to Nevada, started training out there, playing out there, I think like basic academy out there in Nevada, and just kept in touch, kept doing all the work, kept trying to come back and learning. He did our associates program over one summer. I think it was like 2 years ago. And I can't remember what school he ended up going to, like UNC Asheville or something out in North Carolina. And
Hmm.
one of those kids that just kept being consistent, kept learning, pivoting. He had to transfer from one school to another, didn't give himself a chance to just like give up, knowing that he really wanted to do it. And he just got picked up by the Ogden Raptors in the Pioneer League. And so he just left, I think, this week. I got to check in with him. I think he reports today, the 11th. So he might pitch tonight or
Hmm.
tomorrow. And it's just one of those kids that when he started with us, he was just young and he's just learning everything and soaking it in. And now seeing that develop to a point where he's playing professionally now and he's got a chance to go see what happens where, it wasn't guaranteed he's going to be in the big leagues. That's why he's doing it. It wasn't guaranteed he's going to get to a power D1. I think those types of stories help understand or help other parents understand that just the consistency of the accountability and their work ethic can really open up doors that they don't know where it's going to lead to, but they're 100 times more likely to have some success along that road than if they were to not do anything or to just give up or do the bare minimum, thinking that that door is never going to open. One of his, I think, same age teammates was TJ Moriarty, and he was one of those first kids. Like I think
Okay.
we mentioned him before. Um, you know, I had done some lessons with him. Same idea when he was really young. When we had first started, he was throwing. I don't want to oversell this, but I think in the 50s, maybe 55 or 65 miles an hour, something like that, as a high school freshman or sophomore. Um, so
Oh
we
yeah.
had came into the
Wait, who'd you
facility
say?
in Torrance, Moriarty from South
Oh yeah,
High.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah, catcher. Yeah. So
Oh
when
yeah,
we
yeah.
first started with him, I mean, he was
Absolutely.
just really he was accustomed to like standard lessons, right? A lot of parents, especially here in El Paso, they're still used to that lesson structure. They work with an athlete, or they work with a former or current athlete for maybe an hour session once a week, and it's helpful. But I have to remind a lot of parents to say, how many college baseball players or professional baseball players do you see receiving lessons? And usually it's very little or none. So we're trying to help
Yeah.
them train in a system that's going to be a little bit more advanced, a little bit more serious, and also more accommodating for what an athlete actually needs, rather than just kind of the bare minimum. They do a $30, $40 lessons a couple times a week and think like that's going to make a big impact. Um, but back to Moriarty, he was one of those kids that he came in when we were like working with pro guys. We had a couple
Hmm.
guys with the Padres. Charles Brewer had come by. We had Ryan Sheriff we were working with, right? So these guys are in the facility all the time. And here's this other kid who's like a sophomore in high school throwing 65. And we're working on his catching, but it really opened up his eyes to realize, like, okay, you need to get stronger. You need to get faster. You need to have better nutrition. You need to have better sleep cycles. You need to have better overall understanding of how you're building your confidence in a milestone trajectory, and rather than just one day a week think that's going to make a big impact. Um, Long story short, he was, a senior in high school, and we're over at Beach Cities at this point. Um, and he was doing the work every day through season, 365 days a year, just coming in, getting something in. He'd come in his uniform after a game. We're like, oh, didn't you have a game? Like,
Hmm.
oh, yeah, but I didn't play. So, I'm going to take the day off. It's like, yeah, that's right. Um, and we used to do those, was it Superhero Saturdays? So everyone
Yeah.
on Saturday would wear like superhero shirt. And it was just something like just to spice it up a little bit, have a little excitement in the gym, get these kids out of their shell. But he would come in with a Superman shirt every Saturday. And I think for about 12 weeks in a row, he just PR'd. So it was just like the
Every time.
JT day every week, every single time. We're ringing the bell, we're all yelling for him. Um, his senior year, I think he has like a handful of at bats, but trained the whole time, ended up getting a scholarship to Menlo, which is now a
Yep.
D2. I think it was an NAI at that point, but a D2 in Palo Alto, California. And when we would have first started with him, a lot of parents, a lot of athletes would be like, oh, yeah, there's no chance he's going to play at that university. Maybe he walks on at a junior college, but he had completely changed his entire trajectory for not just his baseball opportunity, but like his academic um, experience, his social experience. And he was ended up being just one of the best kids that I remember from that group to go on and train with us and get an opportunity beyond high school. So I think of a lot of kids in that regard of just like how can we impact them um, more than what a standard lesson might help them, or what they're kind of accustomed to with whatever their typecasting is coming from their high school coaches or even like the facilities or travel ball teams they've worked with in the past. So um, that's what I get excited about
Yeah.
working with athletes here in El Paso, but also in California is just being able to be a mentor for that athlete to the level they need rather than just fitting a system of like pumping them in through lessons and getting them out. And you're looking at like, kind of like a turnover issue rather than a quality control issue. Um, but yeah, TJ and
Yeah.
Lucas, man, those
JT.
pop into my head just because we saw Lucas. Yeah. JT.
Yeah.
I'm
JT
saying
was
TJ because you were
freaking
saying TJ.
awesome.
Oh my God. Yeah, JT
No,
Moriarty.
you said JT. I think you said JT, right?
I think I said TJ. I think I said TJ because we were talking about Stevenik. But yeah, JT Moriarty, man. Yeah, what a kid, man.
Yeah, I remember you sending me like the video of the first time you had him throw, and it was literally he was pulling down, like throwing as hard as he could. He was throwing 55. And I was just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what are we going to do for that kid?
Yeah,
Then just watching, same thing, watching the work that he put in and him too, like the confidence. He became almost like our facility mascot. He was just like every single thing that
yeah,
you would want an athlete to do. He was doing it. He was just getting better. And it was funny because you brought up the superhero Saturday thing, but yeah, every week he would like PR. And you're just like, how is he doing this every week? And it was just like, hey, don't telling the other athletes, don't expect to be like JT because I mean that doesn't happen where you PR like 12 weeks in a row on, your
yeah.
throwing. But I remember also him getting hit in the face during live at bats. Uh,
Live at bats. Yeah. Jeez.
yeah, I think Bonsky drilled him in the face, and I took him back into that little kitchen area that was back there to get him some ice.
Yeah.
And he was, he was rattled. He was crying a little bit. And I didn't want everybody to see him crying. So I just grabbed him and was like, hey, get back here. Got him some ice. And then within I think Bonsky finished an inning or whatever. And then when he went back out, like JT got back in there against him. Or maybe it was the next week. I don't know if it was that day. It might have been that day. I can't remember. If it was that day, it makes it a better story. So we'll just go with that. But that day, he gets back in there and freaking, he's only a sophomore in high school at this point, I think, maybe a junior. Bonsky was trying to, I don't know if he was in college or he was trying to get a pro job at that point. Maybe he was in college. But JT gets in there and like lines a freaking double into the gap off of him. And I was like, oh man, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, there are just so many of those stories. It just,
Mhm.
for years we talked about Charlie Perkins. He was also another one of those like
Yeah.
mascots where everybody knew him
Yeah.
in
Just
social
great
media
work
in the
ethic.
social
Great
media world.
story. Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody, like the guys at Driveline, knew who he was because we would post about him all the time. And he's just one of those guys, undersized. Um, you look at him, he doesn't pass the eye test. You just go like, ah. And we even had
Right.
college coaches come in and watch him when he was throwing pretty well, and nobody paid
Right.
attention. They just like look and go, oh, we don't want that guy. But the one thing about him was he was freaking strong as shit. Like it was crazy, even
Yeah.
from the beginning. Like I remember him doing a couple things and not being super athletic, and then as soon as we like tested some of the VBT stuff or lifting stuff, it kind of snapped back like, oh man, this dude's like actually pretty strong. And then for years he had a lot of our records, on the lifting stuff. Like, the trap bar deadlift for 4. I think he held that for a while. Then he got it over like
Hmm.
600 pounds. Maybe Cody beat him. I don't even know. Maybe they tied or something like that. But just a really strong dude.
Yeah.
And he was a guy who went to Harbor, right? He went to Harbor, got cut by a
Yeah.
couple
Junior
junior
college.
colleges, went to Harbor, didn't necessarily have a great year at Harbor, but then leveraged that into a D1 scholarship, like Fairleigh Dickinson or whatever, back
Yeah.
Dickerson or
FDU.
Dickinson,
Yeah. On the
whatever.
East Coast.
Yeah, back here in New Jersey, um, where you're just like, man, that's freaking awesome. But it was just that, he was willing to put in work as well, and he had that goal, and nothing was going to stop him until he got there. And even now, I think they still own a gym or something, training facility,
Yeah.
maybe in El
Yeah. It's
Segundo. I don't
awesome.
know if they still have that or not. I haven't followed up with him in a while, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, just
Yeah. He'd be a good guy to
just a
talk to
really
again.
good kid. Yeah, really good kid. It was fun to watch him do that. And
Yeah.
like I said, that's where people just don't realize. I think a lot of people quit way too early because, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe he didn't make it to the big leagues, but that's not what this is always all about. He
Hmm.
he leveraged his talent as far as he could go, and it ended up being pretty cool. And just you just
Yeah.
know somebody like that, no matter what they do, they're going to be successful.
Right. Yeah. I'd say that's probably one of the cooler dynamics lately for us has been to be able to navigate the process for athletes when their development isn't obvious or it's not the low hanging fruit like okay you got to gain 20 pounds or you got to get stronger you got to obviously throw harder um, but it's being able to take the athletes that maybe already throw 95 and they need to throw 97 so we need to figure out the whole picture or they're on the other end of the spectrum and they need all of it but they got to figure out a timeline that's going to make sense for them to where they can hopefully make their team. We've had athletes get cut, even a guy like Mitch Stone. He threw 90, 93 coming to us, and he got cut from a JUCO, couldn't sustain it. It was hard for him to navigate a full season on a collegiate level. Ended up getting a pro opportunity because it was like we were able to navigate that for him rather than just give
Mm-hmm.
him blind work ethic. And it's um, been fun. I mean, I think of someone like right now, Rishi Wunava, who's been on JV, who's been a hardworking guy. This is the best I've seen him physically. He's been gaining weight. We've been talking about his nutrition. His hitting skill set has developed so much. He's working with Jose Sermo. Even with Jose being gone, he's playing for, was it the Fargo Red Hawks? He's leading the team, or leading the league in homers. I think he's second place in RBIs. And working with
Mm-hmm.
him and having guys like us on his side just to like keep him accountable to his process. He's not getting a ton of D1 um, visibility yet, but he's the type of guy he might get that 4 year school to pick up on him this year, or if he gives him that other year of either a gap year or JC year, he could end up being a guy that ends up having a tremendous amount of success. So that's what I
Mm-hmm.
love is helping these guys that aren't just the obvious ones that we can help, but the guys that just want to put the work in and have a good attitude and have the consistency. And that's what I'm starting to see a shift in El Paso. Is there's guys that just understand it doesn't have to look how they thought it was going to look. Where they go to high school, they get picked up by UT Austin, They get drafted, they play for the Dodgers, the Rangers, or the Yankees. They understand there's 1,000 different ways to get to their goal, but the common denominator is that they have to have work, they have to do it, and they have to have mentors along the way that can help them connect those dots. So I think it's what we're always trying to add to for anyone, let alone just the obvious guys, the guys that are already there.
Yeah, for sure. And even in this area here, back where I'm at, we've got a kid in the area. He's always been pretty good. He's a really good athlete, Noah Farrell. Um, and I've been kind of helping him out the last couple of years, but he was committed to WVU. And, we talk about overexposure and all that stuff. Well, he took a summer, basically, he was just going to too much stuff, went to too many things, and started throwing. He started the year throwing as a junior like low 90s, and then by summer he was like mid 80s. He was just doing throwing too much, going to too many things,
Mhm.
and just so happened that WVU was at one of these things that he threw, not great. So they're like kind of bells went off. They ended up having him come to WVU to throw in their biomechanics lab or whatever, and ended up dropping him like soon after that. And, obviously for him, he was pretty upset about it. But then I'm like, hey, man, like just keep working. You're going to have more opportunities. And then connected him with Sean out there at LMU. And I think he had his choices down to like LMU or UConn. He ended up choosing UConn just because it's closer. But he really liked Sean Isaac and he liked the staff out there at LMU, but um, decided to stay here. He is now like just dominating the high school playoffs right now. He's thrown a couple no hitters this year. Um, they went to, in the first round, he threw like a complete game, struck out like 14 or 15 guys, and he's just gone every game. I don't think he's given up a run, like an earned run in the state playoffs. So Monday, um, he won the game in the semifinals. I think he went 6 innings, um, didn't give up an earned run, struck out 10 or 12. And so now he's going to pitch tomorrow in the state finals in Pennsylvania. So just one of those guys where, yeah, he
Yeah,
had the talent, right? He's just kind of a freak athlete and he works extremely hard. But to see that kind of start to play out and start to get those results, um, you know, even with guys in this area, it's been pretty cool to watch. Um, so just it doesn't matter where you're from, what you have access to. You can always get better. I mean, there's even with us, we do remote programs, and I don't ever think a remote program takes the place of working with somebody in person. But I work with a lot of guys remotely, and it's a different challenge. But you can always get better. If you don't have something in your hometown, uh, there's always a way to reach out to somebody, get a mentor. Um, I think we probably
yeah,
do it better than everybody else, but even if you choose some, a different program, or you find somebody that you gel with and you like, and what they tell you resonates with you,
right.
it's it's beneficial. It's really hard to try and do stuff on your own, especially when there's so much out there, so many resources. You just don't have to do it by yourself. Um,
Right.
so yeah, like I said, even like in this area, I say this all the time. My cousin Mike, I believe he was put on Earth to work with kids, um, for baseball. Like he has a travel team called the State Line, and his son Michael works for him and coaches one of the teams. One of our good friends, AJ Meeker, he coaches a team or two, and they just have a great staff, of coaches that work for him. But Grayson is not playing travel ball yet. I'm just like, man, we'll wait. Maybe next year we can do it. And he never really had interest, but they've been practicing on like Tuesdays and Thursdays up at my uncle's field. And so, watching Grayson play this summer, I'm like, let's start going up there. I asked Mike if it was all right, because he doesn't play for the team, but would it be all right if he came up and practiced? So he went on Tuesday and then he went today, and he freaking loves it. Like I've never seen him this excited about baseball. And they don't hit, they just go over the fundamentals. They're going off over cutoffs and relays and fielding, and they're doing a bunch of different drills, and um, he enjoys it because he's around a different caliber of player, and it's not just his age. So there's a couple kids younger, but then there are like 18-year-olds at these practices too. So he's getting to watch the older kids, like his cousin Tyson, getting to see him, like what he does in the outfield. And I was a little upset today because Tyson got him to go out to center field. I think he's trying to brainwash him into loving center field. And after practice, Grayson was like, "Oh man, I think center field's probably my favorite position." I'm like, "Oh man, what are you talking about? You stop listening to Tyson." But he was out there throwing balls in. Uh, so it's fun to watch. And like I said, my cousin Mike is so good at it. Uh, he's just got an energy about him with the kids, and they freaking love him. And he tells like stupid dad jokes, and they love it. So it's pretty cool. But you can find those guys everywhere. There's always going to be somebody who wants to help out. So if you do have high goals in baseball, absolutely reach out to us first, because we're probably going to be the best at helping. But if you can find somebody in your area, or um, just I would encourage anybody that has high goals to get somebody to help them out, and don't just depend on yourself and watching YouTube videos and social media and all that crap.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question for, I guess, how you would um, recommend a parent or an athlete that's looking to try to get better, like what steps you would recommend starting with. Because I think that's the confusing part for a lot of parents all over the country. I mean, in El Paso, in LA, we even had a couple people drop in the facility in LA yesterday, or a couple days ago from Japan, and they're same thing. They're trying to navigate baseball in the Japanese world, but then also if they want to come over to the US and start playing here, like we've helped that transition for guys that are whether playing collegiately or
Yeah.
professionally. But like, what would you recommend are some of the best steps for any parent or any player on where they should start if they're really trying to take baseball seriously at any level, whether it's high school, college, or professionally? Like, what would you say is like a good first step?
I'd say first step is just a conversation with somebody who you trust and know, or has experience in it. Like, people like us, we talk to parents, athletes pretty much multiple times a day about this stuff. So I think figuring out what your goals are first and foremost. What do you want to do? What do you want? Where do you want to go in baseball? What do you want to try and do? What do you want to accomplish? I think that's the first thing. I think being not, I don't necessarily want to say realistic of where you're at. I don't think, there's the old saying, realism is like the first step in mediocrity. Because if you just sit there and go
Yeah.
like, oh, I got to work on this, it's not being delusional to think like you don't have anything to work on, but you have to be delusional to get where you want to go, because there are so few people that are able to do it. If you want to play in the big leagues, that um, it comes off as delusional because you're trying to do something that no one can do. But you have to have that confidence that you're able to do it, because if you don't, you never get there. But I think the first thing is figuring that out. What are your goals? And then second is talking to someone who has the experience and has got people to get where you want to go. Talk to the people who have been there, but
Yep.
also talk to the people who have worked with people who have been there or got there. And it's really that easy usually. Um, trying to get set up with a program that can help you realistically, and then just be ready to bust your ass. Uh, and
Hmm.
not just bust your ass when you feel like it, bust your ass when you don't feel like it, bust your ass when everything looks
Yeah.
bleak, you know, like you still got to just believe and have that work ethic. And there's zero time to feel sorry for yourself if you have a goal and you don't reach it, or you put a time, you know, a fake time limit on something like, oh, I got to do this by then, and you don't make it. Yeah, who cares? Just keep trying, keep going. Um, and that's,
Yeah.
we say this all the time too, but that's one of the biggest things is the people who just don't quit usually get there eventually. Maybe they don't, but
Yeah.
um, you know, we see people quit way too early, and maybe they just
Yeah.
have a better plan. They got something else they want to do, and they just maybe they put a time limit on things. It didn't work in that time, and they're like, all right, I'm just going to go do this now because I have this in my back pocket. For me, I never had a backup plan. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but when it came to baseball, that's just all I planned on doing, all I knew, all I wanted to do. And I felt like that kept me focused through the whole journey because I didn't go, okay, well, if it doesn't work out, I
Yeah.
can do this. Or I didn't buy a business when I was playing, or I didn't buy real estate when I was playing. I just focused on playing because I didn't want that to become a distraction. Now, some things, yeah, I might kick
Yeah.
myself like, man, I probably should have bought a few houses when they were cheap back, back in 2008, 2005, whatever. They'd be worth millions of dollars now, but um, I just didn't want that as a distraction when I was playing. So, yeah, I'd say that's
Yeah.
a probably pretty good place to start.
Yeah. It's a pretty powerful motivator to just burn the boats, essentially, right? It's like you're all in, you got
Yeah.
no plan B. This is what I'm doing. If you're dedicated enough and if you're smart enough, I mean, you can always pivot along the road or down the road. But to really go all in on something, I'd say most people never really give themselves that chance. As a student
Hmm.
athlete, you're innately or just, I guess, realistically, still working through some parallel paths where you're an athlete and a student. So you're trying to
That's the
fill
worst.
both of those lanes and develop on both. Um, but we do want to at some point have that decision where you can go all in on something and give it a chance, even if it is for a window. And I'm thinking about
Yeah.
a lot of the parents that I've spoken with here recently in El Paso. They have their sons or their daughters that are training at a facility or they've worked with someone since they were young. Um, and I always try to provide the perspective of like, well, how's it working? Like, is it good? Is it bad? What do you like? What do you not like? Never in the context of like, oh, don't train there, train here. Like, do what we say because we're better than them. It's
Yeah.
always, well, let's see what we can add to so that we're part of your development because there's such a short window to be an athlete. I'm not competing for their, I guess, attention with a different facility or a different mentor, or a different coach. What I want to do is just add to it. And if they can do both, great. And if they can only do one, how can we make it work? And I think that's such a better way to go about this is just to see how the mentorship is really being impacted for the athlete rather than trying to get a 15 to 20-year-old to be super loyal to your company when they don't really understand what exactly that means. Um,
Yeah.
I think my advice for parents is along what you're saying. Like you got to have a goal and you got to have a mentor, and then you got to get some type of data. You got to get some type of objective perspective on if it's working fast enough. Um, think big picture, long term goals, but then also incremental short term goals to make sure there's some level of accountability. And if you have a good mentor group or person, or even if it's just your mom or dad or your coach, you can be honest with that process to go a little bit deeper with steps that need to be taken so that you're not victim to your timeline of running out of time. You're a senior in high school and you haven't really poured into your development, or you haven't poured into your exposure, or you haven't poured into maybe the analytical side or the strength side or the nutrition, because you need to have all of that. And essentially, in this business or this industry with baseball player development, you want to hit all of those aspects at the right times for the right length and not go all in on one and forget about the others until it becomes a weakness of yours. We see that a lot with the showcase and I guess like travel ball world, where a lot of people pour into that so much time and effort, and then they miss the boat of when they should have maybe developed,
Hmm.
or vice versa. They're just developing and they're this like
Yeah.
this gym freak. They could physically do a lot of things, but they can't play baseball, or maybe they've never been exposed, or they don't have any pipelines or connections because they don't have the stats or the visibility that they needed. So I think just really having quality information and then having some hardline data, something tangible and quantifiable, is makes it fairly common sense and fairly easy, but it's a lot more relevant now than previously. But the best place to start, just for any athlete at any level.
I agree, man. All right. Well, I got to get ready to throw out this first pitch. I don't know if I should go
Oh
do
yeah,
plyos or what I should do. I'm like not sure what to
stretch.
expect. There's also a mystery batter. I don't know if I got to face the mystery batter.
Yeah,
Like maybe they're going to show up in a mask or whatever. Um,
yeah,
it's my cousin Mike is the mystery batter, which this won't be on there till next week or whatever. But not that anybody's
yeah,
going to look and go, "Oh, I looked at your podcast today and the mystery batters Mike." They don't want it. I guess don't want everyone to know that it's him. But I think I got to face him. Maybe that might be a debacle. So I have to figure out what I got to do. Do I got to get loose? Do I got to throw hard? I don't know if I'm throwing a
yeah,
wiffle ball, if I'm throwing a baseball, because with the Challenger kids, they play wiffle ball, I guess. And I don't know if you've ever seen those leagues where have like some kids in wheelchairs and they'll swing and then somebody will push them to first. But just gets some kids with some physical disabilities a chance to play baseball and just be out on the field and have fun. So should be an interesting time and looking forward to it. But um, yeah, I don't know. I gotta do a cartwheel. I gotta throw gas. I can just maybe throw a knuckleball. So I guess we'll
yeah.
see. But
Little
yeah,
little
always good
banana ball
talking to you,
training.
man.
All right, man.
Yeah, I gotta
Well,
watch some
good luck.
videos or something.
We'll chat soon. Yeah, yeah. You got to check out some
Yeah,
banana ball videos really quick and see what you got to do.
yeah, maybe do like a Michael Jackson moonwalk and a spin. Uh, maybe cut out the crotch grab that Michael Jackson always did.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be a fun time.
All right, man. Well, good chatting with you. Good luck, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right.